Welcome everyone to our second Innovation Forum. Thank you so much for being here. Today is a special day for me for two reasons. First, I have my son attending one of our events for the first time. So, hey buddy, wherever you're sitting. Second, this venue holds a special place in my heart because 10 years ago when we were stuck in one of the dingy, soulless, crammed offices, I remember we talked about one day we'll have a product launch event at TIFF, and that day is today. So thank you so much for sharing this special day with me. So I started in digital advertising completely randomly. I went to school to study finance, and I ended up getting a job at a company that was one of the first companies to integrate with Facebook's Ads API. And at the time, I knew nothing about digital advertising. And my onboarding was essentially being thrown at the deep end and see if I will swim. And I distinctly remember maybe a month into the job, I was talking to a game developer out of Germany. And I remember thinking, man, I barely understand what we do as a company. And I definitely did not understand what they did as a company. And at that moment, I just realized the only way through this is just to wing it. I had to be scrappy, learn on the fly, and learn how to swim. The company thought for me at the time was that everybody was winging it. 2011, Facebook advertising, everybody was just learning how to do this for the first time. At the time, the company's business was entirely focused on social advertising. So my job was promoting games that you would play with friends to grow crops, mahjong, poker, and so on. And it was so simple. The only two things we had to do was optimize keywords of apps that users were connected to and run a ton of creative experiments to see what do people click on and how do they install these apps. And that was my entire world for a year and a half. And I had so much fun running these creative experiments and seeing what obscure images drive conversions. And once the company got acquired, I went to work for one of the largest agency groups. And that's where I, for the first time, got exposed to the vast world of programmatic advertising, with all these complexities and opportunities. And for me, I just felt that the only way to navigate this complexity was to just continue remaining scrappy, learn on the fly. See, the way I sold myself at the interview, I told them I'm a digital advertising expert. When in reality, I was exposed to this tenfold level of complexity that I would just realize it was way over my head. But with the right level of, with the right attitudes, 5 months later, I felt like I know enough to go out and try to build a new generation platform. And so myself, Ildar, and Yang, who you'll hear from shortly after, we decided to start building this company. And when we started building the company, among many different jobs, my unofficial title was of our unofficial CMO. And suddenly, my world expanded tenfold once again. I suddenly had to think not just about advertising, but also how do we create value for our customers? How do we grow them? How do we do so profitably so that we can pay our rent? And in this time, when you're a first-time entrepreneur and your back is up against the wall, I had to go back to the same principles of just winging it, being scrappy, learn on the fly. And I think that is a normal state of mind for any first-time entrepreneur. And entrepreneurship is part hard work, part luck. And lucky for us, we've made a lot of right decisions along the journey. We guessed it right that automation will become increasingly important as time went on. We understood that advertising is just means to an end of business growth. And our care and love for our product, we knew that that would attract thousands of customers. The thing that we didn't guess right was the direction in which the market will go. What we didn't anticipate is just how big the opportunity will become, and that the direction of the market will not go in the direction of consolidation, but in the direction of fragmentation and specialization. And between 2011, when I joined the industry, and today, the ecosystem has exploded with options to now over 15,000 companies selling into a marketing department, trying to solve problems of marketers. And the irony in all of this is that we've never had smarter technology, and marketers have never been more buried under all of this complexity. So let's time travel 10 years back to 2015. 2015 was the first full year of StackAdapt. And that was the year when Facebook and publishers were pivoting to video, if you remember. People were talking about ad blocking. People were talking about a potential of programmatic television. People were talking about that chief marketing officers will become chief programmatic officers. Well, that didn't happen. But what did happen is that the ecosystem has just exploded in terms of size. Between years 2015 and 2025, the market has grown 5x to now over $750 billion digital spend globally. But because of that rapid expansion and rapid fragmentation, friction got added across every stage of the interaction. So now, thousands of companies are touching every single campaign, and at every little step, a little bit more friction gets added along the way. To put it into perspective, in 2015, organizations believed that 32% of their data was inaccurate. Today, 64% of organizations still have data integrity as their key objective. Ironically, the evolution within our industry has always followed the same direction, that we're trying to solve the inefficiencies of era before us. One of the key challenges today is integration of technology. And I would say it's fair to say that every organization wants to see more automation within their business. Transformation is very hard, and that's why 95% of generative AI initiatives within companies fail, because there are no mature automation playbooks that exist that work universally well for everybody. So what I'll share today with you is a simple framework that we're trying to test at StackAdapt to see how we can separate areas within a business and processes that are ripe for automation versus areas that are fundamentally all about added intelligence. And the framework that we refer to is passport stamps versus visa approvals. The first one, passport stamps, comes from the idea that passport stamp uses the same amount of ink, same amount of effort to administer the passport stamp. And you can think within marketing teams, think activities like copying campaigns, checking pacing, or uploading creatives. A lot of these jobs require very consistent and predictable output, but oftentimes don't require a very high level of creativity or problem solving. And the visa approval process are the processes that fundamentally build around variable value activities. So not every activity within visa approvals is the same. So you can reflect on marketing jobs, such as related to overall strategy, understanding what audiences to target, understanding why certain campaigns are underperforming. These are fundamentally visa approvals. So fundamentally, we're trying to think of what are activities that resemble passport stamps within our company, and how can we direct more people in a direction of visa approvals. Interestingly, as we dug more deep and tried to understand what does the overall company landscape look like across these processes, we found that Pareto principle still holds pretty accurately here as well. And again, between different seniority of jobs or different functions, it might vary. But across the company, there's generally 20% of activities that generate 80% of output. So the question is, how do we empower marketing teams to shift more towards activities that carry disproportionate output in terms of value creation? So the opportunity of us, as we see it, is not really about using automation to replace jobs. We see it as an opportunity to direct people in a direction where they can create a disproportionate amount of value and find ways to give leverage to shift more jobs in the direction of visa approvals than passport stamps. The shift of scaling operations within businesses from transactions to systems thinking will define in many ways the next decade. And when it comes to marketing, there are three forces that impact that change from media buying through to growth operating systems. The first one is first-party intelligence. We know that increasingly marketers want to understand their customer better, understand how they can drive better personalization. AI is finally at the scale where it can connect the dots across the organization, unlike anything that we've seen before. And lastly, we're seeing that the financial discipline and diligence around the investment is increasingly being scrutinized by CMOs, CFOs, and so on. So put this together, the job of a marketer is changing away from where do I buy ads towards how do I implement systems that drive compounding growth of our business. And this is where we believe this is all heading. From tools and fragmented point solutions that can take commands and execute on them, to integrated platforms that can give recommendations and learn. And the next leap is around cognitive systems that can understand your business and are capable of acting on that intelligence. So what would a growth operating system look like? And that's something I mentioned before. So let me elaborate a little bit more on this. So growth operating system, what we believe a platform like that would look like is, first and foremost, it would have to have all critical components of running a successful marketing campaign built in as part of this platform. Everything from management of first-party data, creative, measurement, all the distribution channels, all in one unified platform. And the second, it has to be intelligently connected across all these all these systems in a platform that can plan, execute, learn, adapt continuously and intelligently. Such a platform would be incredibly valuable and would have a profound impact on overall business landscape. And it would force many organizations and many jobs to evolve. The way it's going to push brands is really in the direction of becoming almost like data companies, because their data will become the most important asset. Data and signals will ultimately fuel the autonomous growth that these platforms would enable. Agencies will move away from trading in a direction of implementation and management of these systems. It's not going to be about buying ads, it's about understanding how to implement systems for continuous and autonomous growth. And platforms will move from switchboard to growth operating systems. It's going to be less about facilitating transactions and more about intelligent orchestration to drive outcomes. Everything we talked about today, whether it's automation, leverage, or intelligence, none of it matters unless we reflect on how does it change our jobs at work tomorrow. So I wanted to share 4 practical ways in which marketers can start thinking in the direction of where we believe market is moving. First, I believe we have to reflect on how individual channels connect into one unified strategy. And insights from one channel can be adopted across all other channels. We should challenge ourselves to think about not just metrics, but set up hypotheses to try to understand why certain things have happened, and then use these insights for continuous learning and continuous optimization. Think about what jobs are passport stamps versus visa approvals. Not only it will direct your efforts around automation, but also it will help you with mental prioritization about what actually matters and drives your business. And lastly, whether you're an agency or a brand, it is the beginning of an opportunity to start thinking about how do you stop outsourcing critical aspects of your growth to vendors and start thinking about how do you build intelligence internally that you own with the right partners for growth.